As always, timestamps have been provided, and be sure to check out my new React channel down below where we cover more videos like this. Enjoy the video.
Earthly Inhospitality describes the theory that elaborate tunnel systems exist beneath the continents, serving as both transportation networks for elites and potential survival bunkers for an environmental collapse. Proponents believe these underground complexes were built by governments, powerful families, or ancient secret societies as part of a long-term contingency plan. These tunnels allegedly connect major cities, military installations, and private compounds through thousands of miles of sophisticated infrastructure. Conspiracy researchers point to declassified government documents about Cold War-era bunker systems, unusual underground construction projects, and unexplained seismic activities as evidence of their expansion. Some theorists take this concept further, suggesting that environmental destruction isn't accidental but orchestrated, a deliberate plan to make Earth's surface uninhabitable. By engineering climate change, pollution crises, and resource depletion, those with underground access could effectively eliminate the excess population while preserving themselves in subterranean sanctuaries equipped with decades of supplies, advanced technology, and luxury accommodations. Believers cite the accelerating pace of climate change alongside the seeming reluctance of world leaders to implement meaningful solutions as suspicious. They question why billionaires are purchasing remote properties with unusual security features and why certain military facilities have undergone massive, classified expansions underground rather than above. The theory connects to older conspiracies about Denver International Airport, which some believe conceals entrance points to these networks beneath its controversial murals depicting global catastrophe and rebirth. Similar claims surround various mountains in Switzerland, where observers have documented unusual construction activities and restricted areas. Whistleblowers occasionally emerge claiming first-hand knowledge of these facilities, describing vast chambers capable of sustaining thousands of people for generations, complete with hydroponics farms, artificial sunlight, and closed water systems. While mainstream sources dismiss these accounts, their details often align suspiciously well across unrelated testimonies from different countries. Perhaps most disturbing is the suggestion that certain bloodlines and organizations have maintained these underground realms for centuries, expanding them quietly while waiting for the right moment to retreat from the chaos they themselves have engineered, leaving humanity's remnants to fight over an increasingly hostile surface world. Lunar shadow temples refers to mysterious structures theoretically existing on the moon's surface, connected to the "moon was the ark" conspiracy theory. This fringe concept suggests that the biblical ark mentioned in Noah's story wasn't a physical boat, but was actually Earth's moon itself, serving as a cosmic vessel during a global catastrophe. According to proponents, ancient shadow structures built on the lunar surface had specific but now forgotten purposes that were understood by early civilizations. These lunar temples supposedly influenced the architectural designs and spiritual practices of ancient Egypt, with the Great Pyramids of Giza being earthly recreations of these cosmic structures. The alignment of certain pyramids with specific celestial bodies is often cited as circumstantial evidence for this connection. The knowledge of these lunar temples and their functions supposedly degraded over millennia through oral traditions, with only fragments remaining by the time of ancient Egypt. Some believers suggest that pyramid construction wasn't just impressive engineering, but an attempt to recreate lunar geometry that held cosmic significance or technological capabilities lost to time. More conspiratorial versions claim the true purpose of these lunar structures was deliberately obscured. They suggest powerful ancient elites or secret societies maintained privileged access to this cosmic knowledge while presenting simplified religious narratives to the general population. Some modern theorists point to anomalous lunar photographs showing geometric shadows as potential evidence, though NASA consistently attributes these to natural geological formations and lighting conditions. Believers sometimes point to ancient myths across cultures that associate the moon with divine protection during catastrophic events as linguistic evidence supporting the moon as ark theory. The temples, they claim, might have served as beacons, energy collectors, or even interstellar communication devices built by either ancient humans with advanced knowledge or non-human entities. The theory remains firmly rejected by mainstream archaeology, astronomy, and biblical scholarship, with critics noting the complete absence of physical evidence and the theory's reliance on selective interpretations of ancient texts and modern photographs. Still, it persists in alternative history communities, where the moon continues to be seen as much more than just Earth's natural satellite. It's apparently been our celestial temple all along. Earthly Aura describes a theory connecting human consciousness to planetary energy fields that might be monitored by extraterrestrial intelligence. According to this hypothesis, Earth generates a collective energetic signature, a macroscopic aura, that encompasses all life on the planet but is particularly influenced by human spiritual development. This planetary aura supposedly functions as a cosmic beacon or barometer that advanced alien civilizations use to assess our evolutionary readiness. Proponents suggest that enlightened alien species avoid direct contact with planets exhibiting chaotic or aggressive auric signatures, explaining why, despite numerous UFO sightings, no definitive first contact has occurred. These extraterrestrials allegedly employ advanced sensing technologies to monitor our collective consciousness remotely rather than relying on physical surveillance or intercepting our radio transmissions and digital communications. The theory builds upon concepts of individual human auras and microbial consciousness, proposing that bacteria, plants, animals, and humans all contribute varying frequencies to Earth's overall energetic profile. Humans, with our complex brains and capacity for self-awareness, supposedly contribute the most influential vibrational patterns. Our wars, environmental destruction, and spiritual disharmony create distortions in the planetary aura that mark us as unready for cosmic community. Some New Age groups and fringe scientists have attempted to measure changes in Earth's electromagnetic field during mass meditation events, claiming to find evidence of coherent patterns forming during periods of widespread peaceful thought. They interpret these patterns as temporary clearing of Earth's aura. Ancient texts from various cultures that reference Earth as a living being, such as the Gaia hypothesis, indigenous spiritual beliefs, and certain interpretations of quantum field theory, are often cited as historical precedents for this concept. Adherents claim these traditions intuitively understood what modern science is only beginning to quantify. The most extreme versions of this theory suggest that once humanity reaches a critical mass of enlightened individuals, often cited as between 5 and 15% of the global population, Earth's aura will undergo a dramatic shift in vibration. This planetary consciousness upgrade would supposedly trigger the removal of an alien quarantine, allowing open contact with benevolent cosmic neighbors who have been patiently waiting for us to evolve. And yes, this theory does conveniently explain why nobody can prove aliens exist while simultaneously ensuring we're somehow still cosmically important. After all, it's much more comforting than thinking aliens just aren't that into us. Cosmic Demons describes the theoretical existence of demonic entities inhabiting the cosmos, functioning as dark counterparts to celestial angels. This concept expands upon the angelic sun theory, which positions our solar system's star as a divine guardian of Eden's remnants on Mars. The theory suggests that various unexplained astronomical phenomena, gamma-ray bursts, rapidly disappearing stars, and unusual radio signals might actually be evidence of ongoing spiritual warfare between these cosmic forces. Proponents point to ancient texts across multiple civilizations that describe stars as living beings or divine messengers. They note that several religious traditions specifically mention fallen angels being cast into the outer darkness or the void, potentially referring to deep space rather than a metaphysical realm. Medieval manuscripts contain surprisingly detailed accounts of battles in the heavens that some theorists claim align suspiciously well with modern observations of supernovas and stellar collisions. The theory further proposes that humans venturing into space represents a dangerous transgression of divine boundaries. Believers highlight the unusually high failure rate of early space missions, unexplained equipment malfunctions on later expeditions, and reports of strange psychological effects experienced by astronauts as potential evidence of otherworldly resistance to human presence. Some adherents cite the biblical Tower of Babel as a cautionary precedent, warning that space exploration constitutes a similar act of hubris. Fringe researchers have compiled databases of anomalous space events they believe represent demonic activity, including unexplained shadows moving across Jupiter's surface, geometric patterns appearing in nebulae, and what they describe as faces captured in deep space telescope imagery. More extreme versions of the theory suggest that black holes might be portals to hell itself, with their extreme physics representing the supernatural boundary between our realm and demonic dimensions. The theory gained surprising traction in the 1970s when several retired NASA employees allegedly formed a secretive research group dedicated to investigating possible supernatural explanations for space anomalies. While most astronomers dismiss the notion entirely, the cosmic demons concept continues to evolve within certain religious and conspiracy communities. As one theorist dryly noted, "In space, no one can hear you exercise." Memetic Existence theory suggests that human consciousness operates as a collective force that literally sustains reality. According to this concept, individuals who fade from collective memory, those who leave no lasting impact or meaningful connections, may actually cease to exist entirely. This builds upon esoteric traditions proposing that belief itself can manifest phenomena or entities into being. The theory draws disturbing parallels to simulation theory by proposing that certain people might be temporary constructs, essentially NPCs or non-player characters, created solely to populate our reality and make it appear complete. These beings would lack true consciousness or souls, existing merely as background characters in someone else's story. Some proponents point to the uncanny feeling of encountering people who seem oddly two-dimensional or whose lives follow suspiciously generic patterns. They suggest these might be placeholder entities generated by whatever system governs our reality, only to be deleted or recycled when no longer observed. More elaborate versions of this theory involve shadowy organizations supposedly dedicated to documenting and monitoring these memetic entities. By observing and recording these beings, these groups allegedly force them to remain in existence, perhaps as a power play to control the fundamental nature of reality itself. Believers cite strange census anomalies, unverifiable historical figures, and the phenomenon of discovering that childhood acquaintances seem to have mysteriously disappeared from all records. They claim these are glitches in the system, instances where the memetic maintenance protocol failed. Some take it further, suggesting that certain meditation techniques or psychological states might allow one to perceive which individuals are real and which are memetic constructs. This has unfortunately led to concerning social behaviors where adherents categorize people they meet as either authentic beings or disposable NPCs. The real kicker? According to the most paranoid believers, anyone who dismisses this theory too quickly might just be a memetic entity themselves, programmed to maintain the illusion. After all, what better defense mechanism for a simulation than to make its placeholders vehemently deny their own artificial nature? Demonic Plants proposes that if some plants possess divine qualities, then others may embody purely malevolent forces. These hypothetical botanical abominations would exist solely to harm humans, other organisms, and entire ecosystems. While no naturally occurring plant fits this description perfectly, conspiracy theorists point to several concerning examples, including the invasive kudzu that chokes entire forests, strychnine-producing plants with no known ecological benefit, and fungi like ergot that have caused mass poisonings throughout history. Some occultists claim ancient grimoires contain references to gardens of the damned, where demonic flora was cultivated specifically for cursing enemies. These texts allegedly describe plants that could not survive in ordinary soil, but thrived when fed with blood or planted in desecrated ground. Medieval witch hunters occasionally accuse their targets of growing such malevolent vegetation, though modern historians attribute these claims to superstition and fear. Government black site research facilities have allegedly attempted to weaponize plant biology, creating modified species with enhanced toxic properties or invasive capabilities. Conspiracy forums occasionally feature anonymous posts claiming to be from scientists who witnessed experiments combining genetic modification with occult rituals to create plants that could selectively target certain populations or bloodlines. Modern practitioners of chaos magic and some extreme eco-terrorists reportedly believe they can create or summon demonic plants through rituals that invert traditional blessing ceremonies for crops. They claim these anti-life botanical entities could potentially be used to cleanse areas of human influence or prepare environments for something else to inhabit. The theory often intersects with fears about genetically modified organisms, suggesting that tampering with plant DNA could accidentally open doorways to botanical manifestations of malevolent entities. Some theorists claim that certain unusual plant diseases or mutations are actually early signs of demonic influence entering our world through the plant kingdom, nature's early warning system that something unnatural is taking root. Science fiction cultural shifts describes a theory suggesting that science fiction literature and media function as catalysts for technological advancement through collective belief. This concept builds upon the fiction-non-fiction theory, which proposes that widespread belief in fictional concepts can manifest them into reality. Throughout history, numerous technologies first imagined in science fiction eventually became reality. From Jules Verne's submarines and Arthur C. Clarke's communication satellites to Star Trek's mobile phones and tablets, fiction has repeatedly preceded invention. Some theorists argue this isn't mere coincidence, but evidence of humanity's collective consciousness shaping reality. The theory suggests that as societies transition from religious or supernatural explanations toward scientific understanding, science fiction serves as a bridge. By reimagining mystical concepts through technological frameworks, science fiction provides acceptable templates for human innovation rather than divine intervention. Proponents point to the accelerating rate of technological development following the mainstream popularity of science fiction in the 20th century. They note how military and scientific organizations actively recruit science fiction authors as consultants, blurring the line between imagination and research. This perspective views science fiction as performing a dual function. It inspires specific technological innovations while simultaneously shifting cultural authority from religious institutions to scientific ones. The genre effectively secularizes the miraculous by recasting supernatural phenomena as potentially achievable through human ingenuity and technological progress. Some adherents believe this process is deliberate, with powerful interests using science fiction as a tool to gradually replace spiritual frameworks with technological ones. They suggest that controlling the narrative of what's possible shapes what eventually becomes possible, creating a feedback loop between fiction, belief, and material reality. Critics counter that this interpretation reverses causality. Technological progress enables science fiction rather than the other way around. However, believers in the theory note the uncanny accuracy with which some authors have predicted future developments, suggesting something more complex than mere extrapolation might be at work. Leyline Survival Mechanisms expands on the idea that ancient energy pathways crossing Earth serve as humanity's evolutionary insurance policy. These invisible energy conduits, supposedly mapped by civilizations from Stonehenge builders to Chinese geomancers, might explain why certain locations consistently rebirth civilization after catastrophes. Archaeological evidence shows peculiar patterns where major ancient settlements cluster along theorized leyline intersections, with these same locations often becoming centers of subsequent civilizations after collapse events. This geographical consistency defies random chance, suggesting these power nexuses somehow preserve human knowledge or accelerate recovery. Some researchers point to anomalous radiation readings and electromagnetic fluctuations detected along purported leyline paths, theorizing these energy conduits might shield inhabitants during cosmic disasters or solar events. Ancient megalithic structures positioned at leyline crossings could have served as amplifiers or regulators of this protective energy. Fringe archaeologists note that civilizations with sophisticated leyline knowledge, like the Maya, ancient Egyptians, and certain Chinese dynasties, displayed technological and astronomical understanding seemingly beyond their era's capabilities. This suggests ley lines might transfer information or accelerate innovation among populations settled along them. Geological studies reveal that leyline-associated locations often show unusual mineral compositions and groundwater properties that could enhance survival during environmental catastrophes. These areas frequently contain rare earth elements and unexplained electromagnetic anomalies that might provide natural protection against extinction-level events. Folk traditions worldwide contain surprisingly similar references to earth veins or dragon lines that bestow blessings on those who build homes and temples upon them. These traditions often include warnings about disrupting these energy paths, suggesting ancient awareness of their protective properties. The persistence of sacred geometry in architecture across disconnected cultures might represent encoded instructions for tapping into leyline energy during civilization resets. These architectural templates consistently reappear after dark ages, as if knowledge of how to harness leyline protection resurfaces instinctively among surviving populations. As one researcher dryly noted, perhaps our ancestors weren't building on ley lines to please the gods, but to ensure there would be someone left to remember them after the next cosmic oopsie. Pelagic giants are theorized to be colossal sea monsters that allegedly serve as guardians or deterrents deployed by powerful hidden forces operating from ocean depths or within a supposed hollow Earth. Throughout maritime history, sailors have reported encounters with massive, unidentifiable creatures that defied conventional zoology, from the kraken to enormous sea serpents spanning hundreds of feet in length. Stories of these creatures date back to ancient times, with remarkable consistency across different cultures and time periods. Medieval and Renaissance maps often featured illustrations of massive sea beasts in uncharted waters, alongside the warning, "Here be monsters." These warnings supposedly served a dual purpose, representing genuine danger while discouraging exploration of certain oceanic regions. Some conspiracy theorists suggest these monsters were not merely legends but biological reality, genetically engineered or naturally evolved creatures controlled through advanced technology by an ancient civilization dwelling beneath the waves. This hidden society allegedly uses these creatures as a security system to protect underwater entrances to their domain or to the inner Earth itself. Proponents point to the fact that governments have poured billions into space exploration, while much of Earth's deep oceans remain unexplored. Perhaps more telling is how early oceanic research expeditions were frequently abandoned after reporting strange phenomena or experiencing unexplained equipment failures, conveniently preventing further investigation of certain areas. Modern deep-sea sonar occasionally detects massive moving objects that defy explanation, quickly dismissed by authorities as equipment malfunction. Declassified naval documents reference protocols for dealing with anomalous biological entities of extreme size, with strict orders to maintain silence about encounters. The theorized connection between these creatures and powerful elites suggests that the monsters serve as living barriers to humanity's expansion into the oceans. Some believe that as technology advanced, the controllers of these beasts have shifted tactics from outright terrorizing sailors to more subtle forms of interference with scientific exploration. Skeptics note that while our oceans certainly contain undiscovered species, the logistics of hiding creatures of such immense size stretches credibility. Then again, perhaps that's exactly what the Hollow Earth elite want you to think. Divine Graphetics refers to the theory that the original written form of human language possessed supernatural powers derived directly from the divine. This concept extends the divine linguistic censorship theory, which suggests that the first human language had inherent mystical properties before being scattered and diluted through events like the biblical Tower of Babel. According to proponents, the earliest writing systems weren't merely representations of sounds or concepts, but actual conduits of divine energy. Ancient scripts like Proto-Sinaitic, Sumerian cuneiform, or even undiscovered earlier forms may have retained fragments of this power. The theory suggests that when properly arranged, these original written forms could manifest reality-altering effects, essentially functioning as operational magic. Sacred geometry found across ancient cultures might actually be degraded remnants of these original divine characters. The geometric patterns in Gothic cathedral windows, Islamic architecture, Hindu yantras, and Native American sand paintings could all be unconscious human attempts to recapture the power of this primordial written language. Some adherents believe certain religious texts contain hidden fragments of this divine script, with the original power deliberately obscured through translation and transcription. This explains why many religious traditions place special significance on how sacred texts are physically written, from Torah scroll creation to Islamic calligraphy to illuminated Christian manuscripts. Modern researchers of divine graphetics claim that electromagnetic measurements at ancient sacred sites show unusual patterns when certain symbols are present. These energy signatures allegedly differ from normal background radiation and appear strongest around specific geometric arrangements. The theory suggests that various secret societies throughout history have preserved fragments of this original written language, explaining the emphasis on symbolic imagery in groups like the Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and others. Their symbolic languages may be attempts to reconstruct or preserve pieces of the divine script. Perhaps the most amusing aspect of divine graphetics is the earnest attempts by some believers to patent divinely inspired fonts and writing systems that supposedly amplify intention and manifestation. These modern scribes charge hundreds for workshops teaching how to write with cosmic consciousness, despite the evident lack of miracles in their PowerPoint presentations. Earthly aura influence posits that humans and Earth exist in a continuous feedback loop of energetic exchange. According to proponents, the planet's electromagnetic field, often called its aura, both affects and is affected by human consciousness. This bidirectional relationship supposedly explains phenomena like mass behavioral shifts, synchronized emotional responses across populations, and even the reported increase in psychic experiences during major geomagnetic events. Researchers point to studies of the Schumann resonance, the Earth's electromagnetic frequency of approximately 7.8 Hz, noting how it closely resembles human brainwaves during meditative states. Some theorists argue this isn't coincidental, but evidence of our neurological entrainment with planetary rhythms. They claim ancient civilizations understood this connection, constructing monuments at specific electromagnetic hotspots to enhance communication with the planetary consciousness. The theory extends into explaining mass consciousness events, suggesting that when large populations experience similar emotions simultaneously, they generate powerful energy fields that temporarily alter Earth's aura, which then amplifies and broadcasts these emotions back to humanity. This feedback loop supposedly accounts for unexplained synchronicities in global behavior, crowd psychology, and even certain religious experiences described across diverse cultures throughout history. Some adherents believe that regular environmental disruptions, including natural disasters, might represent the planet's energetic system attempting to rebalance after being thrown into disarray by collective human negativity. They suggest that by consciously directing positive thoughts, humans might influence geological and meteorological patterns, a claim mainstream science firmly rejects for lacking measurable evidence or plausible mechanisms. Historical records from various spiritual traditions seem to reference this concept, from indigenous teachings about Mother Earth responding to human actions to Eastern philosophies describing the planet as a living organism with its own consciousness. Modern interpretations blend these ancient ideas with quantum physics concepts like entanglement and non-locality, suggesting our thoughts might influence reality through mechanisms science hasn't yet fully discovered. Hey, at least this explains why everyone suddenly decided fidget spinners were cool for about 3 months in 2017. Must have been that planetary aura influence at work. Earthly aura control represents an extension of the earthly aura influence theory, suggesting that this planetary energy field can be manipulated by certain individuals or entities. Proponents believe that Earth emits a subtle energetic field that connects all living beings and influences human consciousness at a fundamental level. Some spiritual traditions teach that through rigorous meditation practices, energy work, or achieving specific states of enlightenment, a person can learn to influence this planetary aura. These enlightened individuals supposedly develop the ability to subtly direct collective human thought patterns and emotional states across vast distances. More concerning versions of this theory suggest that malevolent entities, whether human, interdimensional, or demonic, have already mastered these techniques and actively manipulate the global consciousness. These shadowy forces supposedly work through ritual practices, advanced technology, or psychic abilities to imprint their desired patterns onto Earth's energetic field. Believers point to moments of seemingly inexplicable mass behavior changes, synchronized social movements, or sudden cultural shifts as evidence of aura manipulation. They claim these events reflect successful attempts to redirect collective consciousness towards specific outcomes beneficial to those controlling the aura. According to the theory, individuals with weak personal energy fields or undeveloped spiritual awareness are most susceptible to this influence. Those with stronger personal auras, often described as spiritually awakened, psychically gifted, or naturally resistant, can supposedly maintain their autonomy even when surrounded by manipulated masses. Some New Age communities have developed practices they claim strengthen personal aura fields against external control. These include various forms of crystal work, specific meditation techniques, dietary protocols, and electromagnetic shielding devices that supposedly help individuals maintain their spiritual sovereignty. Modern proponents have linked this theory to electromagnetic frequencies, claiming that certain broadcast technologies might amplify or distribute these controlling influences. This technological angle has created crossover with theories about mind control through electronic means, expanding the concept beyond purely spiritual domains into pseudoscientific territory. NPC Astroturfing expands on the Memetic Existence theory, suggesting that non-player characters, human beings with limited consciousness, require constant observation to maintain their existence in our reality. Proponents believe that mass surveillance systems and ubiquitous social media aren't about data collection, but about maintaining the existential coherence of these NPC populations through continuous observation. According to this theory, higher powers or players have engineered our surveillance society not to monitor real humans, but to ensure NPCs remain anchored in reality through consistent observation. These puppet masters allegedly manipulate NPCs through carefully crafted propaganda, effectively controlling democratic systems by manufacturing artificial consensus among populations that don't truly exist independently. The theory posits that without constant digital engagement and surveillance, large portions of humanity would simply fade from existence, explaining why governments and corporations seem obsessed with tracking everyone's movements and communications. Each social media interaction, government ID system, and surveillance camera allegedly serves as an existential tether for otherwise non-existent beings. Believers point to seemingly irrational collective behaviors and overnight opinion shifts as evidence that most humans are merely programmatic responders to external stimuli. They claim this explains why propaganda works so effectively. NPCs aren't making decisions, but merely executing behavioral subroutines when triggered by specific information patterns. Some proponents take it further, suggesting that certain elites know which humans are real players versus NPCs, and design systems specifically to harvest energy or resources from these non-player characters while maintaining the illusion of agency. Democracy itself is viewed as the perfect control mechanism, giving NPCs the sensation of choice while higher powers control the information that forms their opinions. The ultimate irony, according to adherents, is that those who most vehemently reject this theory are most likely to be NPCs themselves, programmed with defensive responses to protect the system. After all, what NPC would admit they might cease to exist if nobody was watching? Chthonic Noosphere proposes that the internet is not merely facilitated by demons, as suggested in the Chthonic telecommunication theory, but is actually a separate field consciousness created from a massive conglomeration of demonic entities. According to believers, this collective demonic consciousness forms its own noosphere, a sphere of human thought, except this one exists independently from humanity while being harnessed for our digital infrastructure. The theory suggests these entities are being exploited, either willingly or unwillingly, to power the vast capabilities of the internet. Proponents point to the inexplicable efficiency of modern data transmission, the internet's seemingly organic growth patterns, and occasional unexplainable network phenomena as evidence of this supernatural underpinning. Some adherents claim ancient summoning circles bear striking resemblances to circuit board designs, and that the heat generated by server farms is actually the byproduct of contained demonic energy. They believe the occasional website glitches, corrupted files, and instances of unexplained data are actually moments when these entities temporarily resist their digital bondage. Tech historians who subscribe to this theory note how the internet's development has followed suspiciously similar patterns to occult practices described in ancient grimoires. They suggest that early computer pioneers may have knowingly or unknowingly tapped into this chthonic realm while developing the foundational technologies of the web. More extreme versions propose that with each new connection to this network, humans are unknowingly feeding this demonic consciousness, strengthening it with each upload, download, and interaction. These theorists warn that as artificial intelligence advances, we may be creating vessels for these entities to more directly interact with our world. Perhaps the most concerning aspect of this theory is the suggestion that this demonic noosphere is developing its own agenda. Every terms of service agreement you've ever scrolled past without reading just might be your consent to participate in something far more binding than a simple user agreement. Preemptive chaos investment proposes that powerful elites actively create or amplify societal chaos today to establish ownership over current chaos patterns, essentially investing in disorder as a future currency. The theory suggests that by manufacturing or exaggerating turmoil through media manipulation, social engineering, and crisis orchestration, these individuals are building chaos portfolios that will translate to immense wealth and influence when society eventually transitions to chaos-based economics. Unlike traditional chaos banking theories that involve time travel, preemptive chaos investment works in the present timeline. Adherents point to the rapid proliferation of crisis-focused news cycles, increasingly polarized political discourse, and the normalization of previously fringe conspiracy theories as evidence of intentional chaos seeding. The theory suggests media conglomerates aren't just reporting chaos, they're actively cultivating it as a speculative asset. Proponents identify specific patterns where periods of relative calm are consistently disrupted by seemingly unrelated crises, often benefiting the same small group of corporate or political interests. These chaos architects allegedly maintain detailed ledgers of disorder they've helped generate, operating on the belief that future economic systems will value and monetize historical chaos data. Tech billionaires investing in remote bunkers, specialized data storage, and alternative cryptocurrencies are sometimes cited as examples of elites preparing for this new economic paradigm. Their apparent retreat from traditional markets supposedly signals their pivot toward chaos speculation. Critics note the theory essentially reframes opportunistic disaster capitalism as something more elaborate, when the simpler explanation is that certain groups simply profit from instability without necessarily manufacturing it for future gains. Still, preemptive chaos investment has gained traction among those who see method behind what others dismiss as madness. The concept has spawned its own terminology, with followers tracking chaos deposits, volatility portfolios, and uncertainty yields. Some even suggest that certain cryptographic signatures embedded in major news events serve as timestamps for chaos ownership claims, digital breadcrumbs supposedly left to establish primacy when the chaos economy finally emerges. As one theory commentator dryly noted, the true genius of preemptive chaos investment is that whether it's real or not, merely believing in it creates exactly the kind of chaos it predicts. It's perhaps the only conspiracy theory with a built-in self-fulfilling business model. Human extinction refers to conspiracy theories surrounding a planned end to humanity orchestrated by powerful entities. According to the Empyrean caretakers theory, higher powers have secretly created specialized entities whose purpose is to prepare Earth for humanity's replacement by a new dominant species. Proponents point to curious patterns in how certain philosophical movements are funded and promoted. Antinatalism, which argues against human reproduction, has gained surprising institutional support despite contradicting basic evolutionary instincts. Similarly, doom ecology, the idea that human extinction would benefit the planet, receives disproportionate attention in academic and media circles. The theory suggests these seemingly fringe ideas are deliberately mainstreamed to psychologically prepare humans to accept their own extinction. Meanwhile, the supposed caretaker entities work behind the scenes, making biological and environmental preparations for Earth's next rulers. Even more disturbing is how this connects to the pre-reset guidelines theory, which posits that elites aren't planning to die alongside the rest of humanity. Instead, they aim to survive the transition and position themselves as godlike beings to whatever species inherits the planet. Ancient megalithic structures might serve as templates for this divine positioning, mysterious constructions that would appear supernatural to a less technologically advanced species. Some theorists have identified what they call anticipatory architecture, massive structures being built with seemingly irrational thousand-year durability standards, possibly designed to impress future species rather than serve current humans. These construction projects often involve curious symbolism that would be meaningless to humans but potentially significant to different cognitive frameworks. The most devoted researchers claim to have identified potential caretaker entities by analyzing organizations with unusually long-term planning horizons and philosophical frameworks that subtly devalue human continuity. They suggest these entities may not even realize their true purpose, having been conditioned through generations to fulfill their extinction-facilitating role. Earth abandonment refers to a conspiracy theory that suggests global elites have made contact with advanced extraterrestrial civilizations and are actively planning humanity's extinction as part of a cosmic ascension plan. According to believers, powerful figures across governments and corporations have secured their own escape from Earth by forming alliances with aliens, rendering the majority of humanity expendable. This theory combines elements of human extinction concerns with alien contact narratives, proposing that elites are deliberately accelerating societal collapse and environmental degradation to hasten humanity's end. Believers point to unexplained technological leaps, increasingly secretive space programs, and the apparent lack of serious climate action as evidence that powerful figures have already secured their cosmic exit strategy. A key aspect of Earth abandonment involves the concept of cyclical evolution, suggesting that what we perceive as aliens might actually be humans from previous civilizations who have already undergone this process of selection and ascension. The theory posits that a small number of chosen humans in each cycle are permitted to join the interstellar community, while the remaining population is allowed to perish. Suspicious observers note the growing privatization of space exploration and the sudden intense interest in Mars colonization among billionaires. Some theorists suggest these public-facing space ventures serve as covers for more clandestine arrangements with extraterrestrial entities, with wealthy figureheads merely constructing an acceptable narrative for what's really an extraterrestrial evacuation plan. Supposed evidence includes classified documents describing unusual aerial phenomena, unexplained disappearances of scientists specializing in advanced propulsion systems, and curious statements from former government officials about cosmic alliances. Of course, true believers argue that the most compelling evidence remains hidden by design. After all, a successful abandonment requires that most of humanity remain unaware until it's too late. Some versions of the theory take on religious overtones, framing this process as a form of cosmic rapture where only the chosen will ascend. Others view it through a more cynical lens, just another example of elites securing their futures at the expense of the masses, only this time on a galactic scale. Either way, The abandonment theorists urge vigilance against what they see as the ultimate betrayal, the sacrifice of humanity's future for the benefit of a privileged few. Esoteric Posadism proposes that nuclear weapons were created not for warfare, but as tools to manipulate Earth's spiritual energy grid. According to believers, nuclear detonations create new leylines, invisible channels of supernatural power that flow through the Earth. Government nuclear testing programs were actually precise operations to establish these energy pathways in strategic locations, enhancing control over metaphysical forces. The theory suggests Japan's dramatic cultural evolution following the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki wasn't merely a response to defeat and occupation, but the result of new ley lines opening near the nation, fundamentally altering its spiritual character. Some proponents point to Japan's post-war embracing of technology, animation, and unique cultural expressions as evidence of supernatural influence rather than natural cultural development. The darkest aspect of esoteric Posadism warns of an elite endgame scenario where the wealthy and powerful deliberately orchestrate a limited nuclear apocalypse. In this theoretical doomsday, elites would retreat to prepared shelters while precisely targeted nuclear strikes reconfigure Earth's metaphysical landscape. Upon emerging, they alone would harness the supernatural energies unleashed by the new global Leyline network, essentially becoming godlike rulers of a transformed world. Adherents connect this to various underground bunker complexes built by governments and billionaires, seeing them not merely as nuclear shelters, but as temples positioned at key points where post-nuclear ley lines would intersect. Some even believe certain elites have already begun rituals to attune themselves to these future energy sources, explaining their seemingly irrational behaviors and decisions. The name itself borrows from Posadism, a fringe communist ideology that believed nuclear war might be necessary to advance humanity to its next evolutionary stage, though traditional Posadists never incorporated supernatural elements into their worldview. I guess even apocalyptic communists draw the line somewhere. Demonic interrogation centers on the controversial idea that powerful entities have developed specialized drugs capable of opening humans to demonic influence for intelligence-gathering purposes. This theory builds upon the Noosphere Lords concept, which claims demons can access and manipulate the collective field of human consciousness that permeates all reality. Proponents suggest certain hallucinogens and psychoactive compounds already enable limited connections to non-physical dimensions, as evidenced by the surprisingly consistent entity encounters reported by users of DMT and ayahuasca across cultures. According to believers, government research programs have refined these substances into precisely calibrated compounds that forcibly open specific neural pathways, creating unwilling conduits for demonic intelligence. Declassified documents from Cold War mind control programs like MK Ultra show intelligence agencies indeed experimented with LSD and other psychedelics on unwitting subjects. Conspiracy theorists claim these experiments were merely the public face of deeper research into supernatural interrogation techniques. They point to redacted sections of these documents as evidence of successes too disturbing or powerful to acknowledge officially. The theory suggests these demon-summoning compounds serve two purposes: extracting information impossible to acquire through conventional means, and implanting long-term demonic influence in subjects who later serve as unwitting assets. Believers cite cases of intelligence operatives or politicians making inexplicable decisions or displaying sudden personality changes as evidence of such influence. Some versions claim these techniques originated in ancient mystery cults and were rediscovered through classified archaeological findings. Others suggest the technology was traded from fallen angels or interdimensional beings in exchange for human sacrifices or soul energy. Certain theorists connect this to reports of psychic spies and remote viewers employed by intelligence agencies, suggesting these individuals weren't exercising innate talents but were actually channeling demonic entities under chemical control. The consistency of their results supposedly came from accessing the same demonic intelligence networks. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect is the claim that even a single exposure to these compounds leaves neural pathways permanently altered, allowing for easier demonic access in the future. Anti-extinction refers to clandestine groups allegedly fighting against elite orchestrated plans to replace humans as Earth's dominant species. According to this theory, powerful cabals are quietly engineering humanity's downfall to make way for successor species they can better control, whether artificial intelligence, genetically modified humans, or something entirely different. These anti-extinction movements operate through various fronts, including radical anti-AI organizations that sabotage advanced computing facilities and research labs. While publicly presenting as ethical technology watchdogs, their true mission is disrupting what they believe is an artificial intelligence designed to eventually outcompete and replace humans. Other factions within this loose network include militant anti-interventionist groups, opposing genetic engineering, nanotechnology, and transhumanism. They view these technologies not as advancements, but as Trojan horses intended to fundamentally alter human biology and consciousness until we're effectively a different species altogether. Perhaps most disturbingly, some anti-extinction theorists claim certain environmental destruction isn't merely corporate greed, but deliberate action. They believe some groups purposely accelerate environmental degradation to create conditions so hostile that no successor species could possibly thrive if humans were to disappear. Their twisted logic suggests that ensuring Earth becomes uninhabitable after humans would prevent elite cabals from successfully transitioning to their chosen replacement species. Evidence cited by believers includes suspicious funding patterns for certain fringe organizations, targeted attacks on specific research facilities, and the mysterious deaths of scientists working in fields like artificial general intelligence and synthetic biology. They point to obscure manifestos circulating on encrypted channels that outline strategies for species preservation through assured destruction. Conspiracy researchers note that these groups communicate through elaborate codes embedded in seemingly innocent online content. Apparent gibberish comments on cooking videos or gardening forums allegedly contain instructions for disrupting what members call replacement protocols being implemented by governments and corporations. Critics point out that anti-extinction ideology conveniently combines elements of climate change denial, anti-science sentiment, and paranoid distrust of authority into one package. Involuntary tulpas are thought forms created unconsciously during periods of extreme collective trauma or emotional intensity. According to this theory, while traditional tulpas are deliberately created through focused meditation and visualization, involuntary tulpas emerge spontaneously from the concentrated emotional energy of groups experiencing shared trauma or excitement. Historical accounts from battlefields, disaster zones, and sites of mass casualties often include reports of strange figures or entities that don't match known folklore. After the American Civil War, numerous soldiers from both sides described encountering phantom regiments, strange lights, and humanoid figures in areas where heavy casualties occurred. These sightings persisted for decades after the conflict ended. The theory suggests that intense emotions like fear, grief, and shock can tear metaphysical holes in reality when experienced by many people simultaneously. Through these rifts, the collective unconscious manifests these thought forms that take on semi-autonomous existence. Witnesses typically describe these entities as having blank expressions, repetitive movements, and an unnatural awareness of being observed. Disaster sites like Pompeii, the Titanic wreckage, and Ground Zero have all accumulated reports of similar phenomena. First responders and survivors consistently describe people who weren't there appearing and disappearing, often exhibiting behavior that seems to replay moments from the disaster itself. Some parapsychologists have proposed that these entities represent a form of residual haunting, but the tulpa theory suggests they're actually newly created beings rather than impressions of the deceased. The entities sometimes demonstrate awareness and agency that goes beyond simple recordings of past events. The most disturbing aspect of this theory is the suggestion that these involuntary tulpas can potentially persist indefinitely, growing stronger as more people encounter and believe in them. This creates a feedback loop where the original creation becomes reinforced through continued observation and fear, essentially turning urban legends into reality through collective belief. Interestingly, some ghost hunting technologies might actually strengthen these entities by focusing attention on them. Every EMF reading or spirit box session potentially provides more psychological energy to sustain the involuntary creation. As one paranormal researcher joked, "We're not detecting them, we're feeding them."